Hey, welcome to the Israel First television program live on YouTube with myself, Martin Blackham, and with my wife, Nathalie Blackham. Great to have you with us if you're joining live. Great to have you with us if you're watching at a later date. We welcome you across the world. And this is the program. We look at Israel, we look at the news, and we look at features from Israel, and we look at teaching from a Hebraic perspective. And as I said, we are doing this program live on YouTube. So if you are on YouTube, please let us have your comments. Natalie's going to endeavour to look at your comments as we're going through the program. So you'll be able to speak to us live on the show. By the way, you can still communicate to us. If you are watching at a later date, you can email us at info@israelfirst.org. Now, in Israel, the news is that Israel has extended the national lockdown until the end of January amid soaring COVID-19 rates. Ministers also approved new regulations requiring all those entering the country to present a negative virus test or face a fine. By the way, this is people from Israel, not tourists. Government ministers voted to extend the national lockdown for an additional 10 days as Israel saw its highest yet coronavirus infection rates since the start of the pandemic. The lockdown already is in its third week, was due to end automatically today, had an extension not been issued, Nathalie.
I know, and we say hello to the people who are watching us, and please put some comments, and today we will answer your comments if it's possible.
Yeah, it's always great to hear from you. We really appreciate you contacting us, and let us know where you're watching in the world. That's always very interesting. Thank you, by the way, for all those who've been watching the programs and sending us comments. We'll endeavour to get back to you. As I said, following the unanimous cabinet decision, Israel is going into lockdown, and the ministers also approved a fine of 2,500 shekels. That's roughly $772 for anyone who arrives in the country without a recent negative virus test, according to the Prime Minister's office. Under the new policy, the test must be conducted within 72 hours before landing in Israel. The Health Ministry also said that a record 10,051 daily infections were confirmed, bringing the total caseload since the start of the pandemic to 565,629, including 82,652 active cases. The rate of positive tests passed the 10% mark for the first time in over 3 months, with 10.3% of the 100,000 tests coming back positive.
Now I heard that today it was 9%, so it's a bit lower.
It can go up and down.
It's still not going down as quickly as we would really like to see it, especially that we've been now already in 2 weeks of lockdown.
Right, and it's just to let you know what's happening in Israel. We know that a lot of you are interested in the news from Israel, and we wanted to keep you updated regarding the coronavirus pandemic. Now, whilst this week, as we've been battling the coronavirus, there's also been terror attacks from Gaza. Just this week, terrorists fired rockets from the Gaza Strip at Kibbutz Nahal, southern Israel. Fortunately, there were no injuries or damage reported. The Gaza terrorists also fired 2 rockets during this week from the town of Beit Hanoun in the Northern Gaza Strip toward the southern Israeli town of Ashdod. No injuries or damage were again reported. The IDF said that it takes very seriously any terrorist activity against Israel and is prepared and ready to act as resolutely as necessary against attempts to harm Israeli citizens and their sovereignty, the IDF stated. The terrorist organization Hamas bears responsibility for what is happening in and out of the Gaza Strip, and it will bear the consequences of terrorist acts against the citizens of Israel. And at the same time, the Home Front Command, that's the part of the IDF that looks after the citizens of Israel, has been testing rocket-proof windows for hospitals and for private homes. This comes as a breakthrough, as so far shielded windows in bomb shelters were usually small and located high up on the wall. The IDF Home Front Command has successfully tested the ability of large windows to protect against rockets because of these rocket attacks, which would help disabled people in health clinics and hospitals. Until now, shielded windows in bomb shelters and secure spaces usually have been very small and located high up on the wall. This new type of window is meant to start near the floor. In 1991, for those of you who don't know this, the Israeli parliament passed a law that required every new building, private and public, to have a secure space in it. Despite various initiatives to build such spaces in older buildings, there are still protective gaps in the country, Nathalie, where people haven't got a bomb shelter.
Yes, you're right. And so we know some organizations now who are helping to have some bomb shelter outside, and people have to run to this bomb shelter. And the problem is sometimes because of panic, or because sometimes it's like you're not always ready to run. It's just the alarm suddenly is going up. And so people injure themselves when they go running to the shelter. So obviously it's always much better to have a shelter in your home, so you are not panicking and you don't go outside. It's just straight into your home.
Yeah, and every house has to have a bomb shelter. And when there is something happening, it is concerning, and we have the alarm system in each area goes off, and you have I think it's a minute, 2 minutes, where you depends where you are. You live in Israel, that you have to find a secure shelter, or you can lie down flat on the road, as some people do. Now, also at the same time, there's some interesting developments, technological developments that are happening. A lot of change of technology, like even us being able to do the program live on YouTube. It's an amazing development. The electric scooter service Bird, for those who ride electric scooters, and they're a hiring company, you have to hire the scooter from them, are to implement facial recognition technology from Israel's AU-10 TIX information technology company based in Hod HaSharon. E-scooter provider Bird, which has e-scooters in Tel Aviv, but they're all over the world. It's an international company, has announced its plans to implement Israel-based AUT-10 TIX's technology to help identify underage users or attempted fraud on its platform. The authentication process works through an ID scan upon initial registration for the apps and takes approximately 8 seconds to confirm the identity of the user or deny them access if appropriate. It will help raise the level of safety and in this case prevent minors using our scooters, said Yaniv Rivlin. He's the CEO of Bird in Israel. I'm happy with the choice of using Israeli technology and AU-10 TIX. This is yet an additional important milestone for Israeli high tech. The 8-second solution is far quicker than conventional tools, which can take up to 20 minutes to ensure the right person is at the helm of the e-scooter service, mixing metaphors there with the with boats. Anyway, AU-10 TIX helps prevent fraud through the deployment of its ID authentication and verification technology, which are already used by companies like Google and Payoneer. And facial recognition technology, we said on the last program, they're already using it, Nathalie, to use in shops and things. And what we have said, which is very important, is whilst it's very, it's amazing the technology is growing, changing and growing, the difficulty is that it can be used in the wrong hands, it can be used for bad purposes. And so facial recognition technology, whilst it may have some security aspects which are good for some people, and particularly like for airports and things like that, for a lot of people it could also be used against them. And it also depends on what kind of government, if you have a friendly government or you have a government which is not so friendly. So something to watch out for, folks. This is with the facial recognition technology.
This is for everything. Like we see, like computer are like amazing tools. We can connect with so many people, but again, it can be in the hands of wicked. And as we can see, which is interesting. When you speak about these things, I was reading, is it okay? I'll go on, because you know how we love to give you also some understanding about the Hebrew language as we live here in Israel and we're learning, and it's really something which is beautiful. So I wanted to read today in the Psalm 1, okay, something with you, and when you speak about wicked and righteous, it's exactly what is written in the Psalm. They are speaking about the righteous who doesn't want to sit with a scoffer, and so it's like we need to make choice. We are making choice every day of how we want to live, and using the new technology for the good of the world and humanity, or we can use it if we want for our own purposes. So the someone is really speaking about that. But I wanted to give you something special on the Psalm 2 that you can't really see in English, but is very beautiful and deep in Hebrew, okay? So I read the verse first, and it's verse 2 of Psalm 1, and it said, "But his desire is in the Torah of Hashem, and in his Torah he meditates day and night." Now when you read here the name Torah, it comes from the root yoreh, and which means instruction, which means like teaching, okay? And because very often in many Christian Bible, you will see the law, which is totally, I mean, it has nothing to do with the law. It's teaching. Like here in Israel, when the kids go to school, his teacher, the male will be moreh and the lady will be morah, okay? And this comes from the same root yorah, okay? And so Torah, because again they have really not so many roots of words, and then they are adding one, like Mora, they add the me to make the name of the person who is teaching, and like Torah will be again, you add the te to make you saying this is instruction, okay? But all the roots will be like from learning, teaching, okay? So go back to that. When you read it in Hebrew, it's like refetzo vetorato. So suddenly the Torah of God, Torat Adonai, is becoming Torato, his Torah. Isn't it amazing? So it's like when you spend time in the instruction of God, when you start to read and learn and really meditate also on it, the Torah is becoming yours.
Wow. And if you're watching and would like to support the program, please do help us. It's because of your support, because of your help, your donations, that we're able to come today live from Jerusalem, from our studio, bringing you news and teaching from a Hebraic perspective. And you can get in touch with us, and very easy to support us. Just go to the donate page, and don't forget Nathalie's done a book. They need to go to see the book. That's it. It's called The Beauty of the Hebrew Language. That's also available on the website. You can order it and pay for it online, and we'll get that delivered to you. You can also get an e-copy, which is brand new, and that also helps us as well. So go to the Hebrew page, the Hebrew book page on the website, and all the details are there. And if you have any difficulties with that or donating, then please do contact us at info@israelfirst.org. Now, one of the things is that America really affects Israel, and it says in the news, United States social media service Parler, Parler, the big service which was being the alternative to Facebook. The CEO and family in hiding after receiving death threats.
Twitter or Facebook?
Yeah, it could be more Twitter really, but it's an alternative social media site, which it's a bit bigger than Twitter. You can do a longer story, but Parler's chief executive John Matsey and his family have gone into hiding after receiving multiple death threats and harassment threats. Multiple United States news agencies reported. Parler is a very important social media app which Israel had a page on, and there were more than 12 million users, including ourselves, Israel First. The app was unfortunately removed from Apple, Amazon and Google. And we just, the amazing thing or the terrible thing is that we just set up the Israel First page for you on Parler and it was taken down. And, folks, we are seeing the greatest attack on freedom of speech in history, which is happening right before our eyes. And there's a suppression of truth, Natalie. So that's the reason we're doing the program, so you can hear truth, you can hear what's going on in Israel, what we're able to see. Obviously, with COVID-19, it means that there are limits and restrictions, but we are giving the news accurately and fairly and from a truthful point of view.
Now, there was also the prayer breakfast who happens here in Jerusalem every year, and they were trying to bring people. And it was like, no way, people couldn't come. So obviously they've done also a special YouTube and a special Zoom and people were speaking together. But which was very interesting because there is quite a lot of Americans who are on this prayer breakfast. And it was the day on the inauguration of President Biden in the United States. And so a lot of people were speaking about what was happening, and we could hear firsthand what happened on the 6th of January. And it was not at all what the media was saying. And the Christian I was shocked myself when I was listening to the report that they were giving. And we can see freedom of speech taken out. And not only that, it's like, okay, Trump, they are putting Trump away now on the side, they don't want him. But not only that, like there was a pastor who was speaking, who was part of the team close to Trump, and suddenly the media of his county of his state was starting to really say nasty things about him because he was with Trump. Yeah. So there is really something going on in America.
There's this going on all over the world, Natalie, and if that's happening to you, then do let us know. Do send us a comment that what's happening in your area. To be very interesting. Obviously, as a program, we are concerned about Israel and getting the news out, but it's also affecting Israel. A lot of the media, which I used to think was fairly independent, isn't independent at all.
No.
And we're not really getting the truth. It's all being disseminated. The major media networks are just putting out what they want to put out. Now, what I found was very interesting, Natalie, I found a comment. This is a comment regarding about what was happening with free speech in America. Somebody who has been in a film about his life because he was working in America. Edward Snowden, he was a former intelligence officer, and he was reporting on what we call the surveillance society, which is another issue. And then we were talking a bit about that in facial recognition. But Edward Snowden, the former American intelligence officer, whistleblower, and expert on surveillance society, tweeted about what was happening with President Trump. For better or for worse, this will be remembered as the turning point. Listen to this, the turning point in the battle for control over digital speech. The fact that the big Twitter, Facebook, YouTube or whoever were turning off all the president's lines of communication will be remembered. President Trump will be remembered as a turning point in the battle for the truth to get out. And so this is very shocking. And as I say, if it's happening to you, then please do contact us, and that'll be very interesting for us.
When you speak about that, again, I'm going to give you something, because the Hebrew language, which was like Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language was used by God. We spoke already about these things. There was something very interesting, because when you see what's happening now, there is so many lies. They seem the truth, but deep inside is not the truth. And it's like there is the name Sheker is lie in Hebrew, and Emet is the truth. And when you look at all the letters on Sheker, the Shin is not standing straight, K is not standing straight, and the R is only one leg, okay? But when you look at the name Emet, which is the first, again also, the first letter of the alphabet, the middle one and the last one. which is really like to show that the Hebrew language really carries something divine. So when you look the Aleph, it has 2 feet. The Emet is really standing also flat, and the Tav has 2 feet. So you can see that Emet is standing. And so whatever is happening in the world right now, the Sheker can't last. And but the Emet will last forever. It stands for itself. You don't need even to fight for truth, because truth stands for itself. So we don't need to get virulent. It's like the truth, when we expose, Sheker is exposed by the truth. And Sheker will just disappear one day or another. And which is very interesting, because again, when you speak about Shabbat, again, it's like something beautiful that God has given to humanity, not just to the Jewish people. Yes, it was given, they kept it, but when you look, it was in Genesis 1, and God started to rest on the 7th day. So again, when you look at if you look in the time, okay, like the Jewish calendar, we are coming at the end of the 6th millennium, which is the end of humanity working hard, and then you arrive on the 7th millennium, which is Shabbat, the introduction of rest. So we are coming onto this time, and like again, Shabbat, at the end of the Shabbat, there is this staff who are saying, like, truth will prevail. So when we are good, and I was listening to a teaching yesterday, which was beautiful, when we are bringing truth and righteousness on the earth, he stays here, okay? But when there is sheker, when there is lie, it just disappeared. It just disintegrates. It's like going into auto-destruction. So we really need to keep this love of the Torah. We need really to keep this love for truth, because truth will prevail. And we don't need even to fight hard for that. We just need to speak truth, and it will stand for itself.
You know that we were talking about technology, the amazing things that are happening. Well, one of the amazing developments has been in Israel, the development of an artificial cornea that returns sight to the blind. Israel performed the first ever cornea transplant returning sight to a blind person. The Corneat K Pro implant is designed to replace deformed, scarred or damaged corneas. An 87-year-old Israeli blind man got his sight back with the implant of an artificial cornea, the first such operation in the world. The artificial cornea designed by the Corneat K Pro Vision was implanted in a surgery performed at Rabin Medical Center in Petah Tikva. Upon removal of the bandages, the patient was immediately able to read text and recognize family members, the company said. The surgical procedure was straightforward and the result exceeded all our expectations, said Professor Irit Bahar, director of the hospital's ophthalmology department, who conducted the surgery. The moment we took off the bandage was emotional and a significant moment, she said. Moments like these are the fulfillment of our calling as doctors. We are proud of being at the forefront of this exciting and meaningful project, which will undoubtedly impact the lives of millions.
That's it, isn't it amazing? It's amazing.
Unveiling this first implanted eye and being in that room in that moment was surreal, added Dr. Gilad Litvin, the co-founder of Corneat Vision. After years of hard work, the implanting of the Corneat K Pro with ease and witnessing a fellow human being regain his sight the following day was electrifying and emotionally moving. There were a lot of tears in the room. The Corneat K Pro implant is designed to replace deformed, scarred or damaged corneas and is expected to fully and immediately rehabilitate the vision of cornea blind patients following a relatively simple implantation procedure. It is the first artificial cornea that completely integrates the eye with no wall and no reliance on donor issue, the company said. So there's an amazing, there's amazing things happening. Now, one of the the other things that we have to watch, and something that we report to you regularly on, is about Iran. And Iran, was a massive Iranian missile drill, which was a message to Israel. Iran's Revolutionary Guard conducted a drill launching anti-warship ballistic missiles at a simulated target in the Indian Ocean. Iran's Revolutionary Guard recently conducted a drill launching anti-warship ballistic missiles at a simulated target in the Indian Ocean, reported the foreign press. Footage showed 2 missiles smashing into a target that Iranian television described as hypothetical, this is in quotation marks, hypothetical hostile enemy ships at a distance, now listen to this folks, listen, a distance of 1,800 kilometers, that's 1,120 miles. The report did not specify the type of missiles used. In the first phase of the drill, the Iranian Guards Aerospace Division launched surface-to-surface ballistic missiles and drones against hypothetical enemy bases. Footage also showed 4 unmanned triangle-shaped drones, that's UAVs, flying in tight formation, smashing into targets and exploding. A recent report at Newsweek alleged Iran's kamikaze drone base in Yemen with Delta Wing-style drones. The report called them Shahed 136. Reports have said that some of these drones, their unmanned aerial vehicles, have a 2,000 kilometer range, meaning they can reach Israel. The missiles also have a long enough range to possibly target Israel, depending on where they are fired from. And at the same time, Israel has been is going to hold a massive exercise this summer, simulating full-scale multi-front war, Nathalie. Exact timing and nature of the drill will depend on coronavirus restrictions, but it's due to include the entire army and other government bodies in an apparent message to Iran. And we will, God willing, update you as to the situation in Iran and all the different difficulties that Israel has, and all the exciting technological developments that are happening. Thank you so much for supporting us. Because of your support that we're able to come to you today. Don't forget to visit the website www.israelfirst.org.